Morning, guys. It's 4:29 in the morning Pacific Standard Time. It's the 25th of August. No, I'm sorry. Scratch that. 29th. My eyes are going crazy. It's Tuesday morning, 2023. Barely awake and sleep deprived. Zombie. Weaver, John C. of Roseman, California. Anyway. Deeply disturbing dreams of different things left and right, and me dealing with that kind of altruistic plane and dealing with entities far beyond. It's kind of weird ass stuff. And I didn't have to do any acid or anything about that one. Anyway, coming across an article that a YouTuber out there had been doing regarding things happening in his own neighborhood and how he was deeply disturbed about it. Morning, artist. Yeah, it is deeply disturbing when you see stuff like that happening, especially in a neighborhood and you got these guys saying it left and right. But I can say one thing about it, and it's going to be equally worse disturbing, pal. You see it blatant. Mine's subtle out here in Roseman. And it's also subtle out in the Antelope Valley. Mostly out here where I am. They don't have to say it, you see it in the eyes. See it in the stances sometimes. And yeah, I am not backing off on the videos I had put out there. There's no way in hell I'm going to be able to do that. I am just going to simply say that it's out there and it's uglier than shit. I'm not backing off my language either this morning. I had to tell my story, what was going on, because it was that important. I had to tell my story about what was truly happening in my life because it is that important. Some people may not think it, and I don't care. Yesterday, I had a run in with a student concerning about what he thought the good old days were like and how he wanted to go back to them. And he was about maybe in his 20s or 30s, maybe. Didn't look like he was in his 40s, otherwise, he'd be able to know and figure that stuff out for himself. But I had another mid mid level 20 something gentleman, young man. While I'm talking to you on the screen, I'm posting the other wind files out there just to get them on record. Anyway, the gentleman I was talking about, and if we want to get into the R word, so let's not be ashamed and bushel around and be screw the damn euphemisms and cliches out there. He was a black gentleman, a young man. He's not in his teens. He's just basically probably in his 20s or 30s. May or may not have been an employee, but he certainly acted like he was either an employee or a student at the campus. And he kept saying how things were better back then when their parents were, and he didn't like the things happening here. And I'm looking at him and I'm listening to this stuff. I was in the computer room charging up my phones. It's half computer room, half lounge, waiting for my bus. Too damn hot to wait down there and get cooked. And while I'm sitting in air conditioning listening to this guy go off, he wanted what his mother had. His mother may have been going through probably, what the hell is it? Probably programs I didn't even hear about, or right now my brain is too fuzzy from sleep. I'm still waking up here. But he was he was saying that things were a lot better because he didn't hear about all these things happening, and I'm listening to him and I'm laughing myself. Like, you got to be kidding me. And then I had to open up my big fat mouth on this one. Oh boy, you didn't even know what that was going on. Oh, I wish my parents were here. They took advantage of these programs over here, and they got this and they got that. I'm like, well, yeah. Is that what happened back then? And I'm thinking their parents must have been about my age or a lot older than me. Okay, affirmative action. That was the word I was looking for. Affirmative action programs they probably had to get them inside college. Okay, fine. They had affirmative action to get them inside college. And maybe they did qualify for special grants or loans at this point over here, which will be owed up to the yin yang. Grants are usually the money being given out if you qualified under certain aspects or qualifications, and also if your grades were good enough to go through college. Points I can give the guy to his family on that one. But as for him knowing what the hell happened back then and how life was a lot better, I'm looking at some. Seriously? I had to give him a few pointers about things I went through. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. And he's storming out there, and like his other partner was looking at him like, "Dude, is that what happened?" Yeah, well, worse than that. He's worrying about the environmental changes and endangered of animals. Hell, we had problems concerning about animals disappearing left and right. Not to mention deforestations we had going on. This guy never studied history, had he? Never been a history major or political science, but not just political science, history. And how much man has screwed up this environment left and right. I mean, hell, he's worrying about stuff like this, and how it's getting hotter like crazy. He just never studied about what the hell happened in history, not to mention what happened anthropology. No, not anthropology. How about paleontology? What was the atmosphere like back millions of years ago when the dinosaurs were walking around the Earth? They had their own carbon dioxide emissions coming out of their own creations. But they didn't have a technological advanced degrees or something like that. They're just simple creatures living and existing on instinct. That's what they were. Mankind screwed our things over by changing the environment around a lot longer. Maybe the Industrial Revolution didn't exactly help much. We are dependent upon oils left and right and burning like crazy, but also doing huge swaths of land, burning them like crazy. And it wasn't exactly nature changing it. Mankind was changing it a great deal, and we just didn't bother to pay attention, now did we? No, because we didn't know any better. Did we? We didn't. And then I told the young man what the histories were like back in the 1960s through actually the 1970s and the 80s and 90s. Uh, I didn't even get into the point where we had oil embargo going on by OPEC during those days, and how we had to have odd and even days with our gas. We also had air quality issues left and right. He wants the good old days. He wants to smuggler. Be my guest. We didn't have our QMDs out there left and right trying to make regulations going on, enforcing regulations through the state and federal levels. We wouldn't have the air quality breathable these days. We depended upon diesel fuel like crazy, and breathing out of a exhaust, no damn fun at all. So whether some of us went crazy or brain dead or something else, I'm surprised I didn't. I was on those diesel buses. But I've also seen some racial discrimination happening left and right, and I had seen the effects concerning about racial riots. The advantages of getting old is you happen to be a living recorder, trying to get everything else you can and put it into a perspective. And it sucks that one particular generation thinks he had it so his parents had it so well. Did he? I'm surprised this guy actually ever studied history at all in a college campus, and he's a student there or faculty? Does he ever understand what the hell the students are understanding and learning? Shit. That's why I got a problem with this dude. And if I go back over to the computer lab tomorrow, charge things up, and I happen to see him on shift, I ain't apologizing for the shit I'm saying. I'm not. I lived it. It wasn't good times back then. Even the blacks were still getting harassed left and right. Martin Luther King had an anniversary march, yeah, the anniversary march happened 60 years ago yesterday. A lot of people gathered at the national monuments and covered the entire area with a lot of protests heading towards the White House and telling them folks that they want to be recognized. They wanted to have the same freedoms and the same rights and the same liberties as everybody else did. I mean, yeah, they're free, but they're segregated. They were denigrated. They were pushed aside, sneered at, spat at, thumped at, killed. Yesterday, Jacksonville, an asshole, I'll say it again, an asshole, who bought guns legally in the state, decided he didn't like blacks. He was going to shoot up a campus, but he decided against it since he got caught on that one, as he was putting on body armor and grabbing an AK-47 and Glock that he legally purchased. So he goes to a nearby store and shoots that up. Until finally he kills himself. You know, with the young student, and I call him young because he was a lot younger than 57. He's not as old as this old fart here. I keep looking at him and I'm seeing other kids like him. Black, still learning about life itself. Gonna get shot up because of some asshole decided that his white privileges have been violated and therefore he must make a righteous, according to the mindset. According to the mindset, he must make it righteous by eliminating that. I'm saying it directly. And what we get is more upset parents who have to go to funerals. The young man I was dealing with inside the campus, I don't know how many funerals he's gone to or how many deaths he had in his family, but I'll tell you one thing. The older I get, the worse it gets for me. I can't stand him. It's a reminder to the people I've lost on a constant basis. The reason why I have the pictures over here. I remember the people that I've had to attend services at. I remember what impact they had made on my life. And some of them very, very deeply, they made inroads into me. I'm not going around screaming and yelling that they have to be eliminated. I cry for these people because they made so much of influence, a positive influence in my life that I miss the living crap out of them decades later. That they mattered a damn to me. Darla was making a comment about a gentleman he was helping out. And the gentleman was responding in kind, and they were exchanging. And apparently, the gentleman was making a lot of inroads into Daryl at this point. it moved him, and it should have. It should. It was enough for him to talk about it. I didn't catch this video, but I caught it. People that we meet on the streets, one way or another, do make inroads into us. They shape us, they enlighten us, they enliven us. They give us perspective. And if we're lucky enough, they insinuate and become part of it. And when we don't see those people anymore, we wondered what happened, but not just out of plain curiosity. There's a heartache. There's a heartache. They matter more to us because they enriched our lives. When I start think about these things, yeah, it hurts, and it should. Missing those that we care about when they actually do tug on our heartstrings to the point where we miss them a great deal. Yeah, we do cry because they made the inroads and it mattered. It mattered a great deal. The lives that were shattered by a lunatic, they should also resonate. I don't get it. I don't understand why. I could try having a philosophical debate with the student I had yesterday. I mean, I would like to pick his brain cells. Why he thinks the past was so damn good. And I'm thinking to myself, a child would think about that one because a child didn't have the perspective necessary to understand what the hell went on unless the child was growing up hard, heavily, and fast in that one, where he had to mature rapidly enough mentally, if not physically, to understand anything dramatic that was changing him and his life forever. He was joking about how things were dying around him. Well, they were already dying back then, and he didn't even realize it. Each generation still had to deal with it, and they didn't even realize what the hell they're dealing with until we had people trying to ring the bells left and right, and we were deaf to it. We had cotton in our ears. We would have debates about it with blinders on. We didn't want to see the problem. We didn't want to hear the problem. We didn't want to know the problem. But we'll debate you about the problem with what our limited knowledge was until we see the effects, and then we start blaming. Said before, we don't man up. We don't man up. We don't take responsibility, accountability, or transparency. Daryl was talking about idiots protesting with masks, how they didn't like the blacks at all. Daryl, you should have called them Karens. You should have called them Karens. Besides racists, besides cowards, should have just called them Karens. Karens don't care anything else about getting the negative attention that they deserved or they crave. My mama was trying to tell me something a long time ago. And I heard it from other people as well. If you can't get any positive attention, you get negative attention. You really must have been that desperate enough to look for attention when you put a mask on. You start putting up a sign. You think, oh, look at me. I'm so this, so that. You got to pay attention to me because I'm just bitching. What's even worse is when they start pulling out the weaponry. They back up their insecurity and lack of, I'll just say the insecurity. I don't know if a woman can be emasculated enough to be that vitriolist, but unfortunately they are. And blatantly lie to your face and blame it on you. You're the victim. Everything is all on you. I wanted to stay away from a Karen situation. The gentleman I was speaking to was a young Latino. And he didn't even hear about the stuff happening in the past because he never had any past experiences. And I'll tell you one thing, what movie kind of impressed the living crap out of me a long time ago, back in the late 80s? Stand and Deliver. Edward James Olmos played Jaime Escalante. Uh, it was a high school that Jaime taught at. In Los Angeles School District back then, they still had racism going on. They didn't say it, but they had it anyway. Yeah, in different areas of, I'll say it against Los Angeles because that's what it was back then. They tried to rename it and relabel it, but it was still South Central. And it still brings up the nastiness and ugliness that a lot of people kept assuming it to be, but it was still their home. They call it the barrio, but it was still home. And in this high school, Jaime Escalante was an engineer trying to find engineering jobs. He got laid off of one and was trying to find another one, probably aerospace, where he can work in. He knew mathematics like crazy. The only job he could get was being a teacher and dealing with students who had to barely pass through life. And he was discovering how smart these kids were, but also very defensive, very protective, very terrified, and tough looking, and tough acting. And this movie, it was like Hollywood spin on what Jaime's life was like. Give me a second here. I just trying to get the cast information. I watched that movie and tried to understand it back then compared to these days. Oh man, it's definitely needed to be understood. Excellent actor, Lou Diamond Phillips. He played a tough youth during this film. He was stuck in it, but he was a very smart kid. 1988. Oh, was it 85? I really gotta get my glasses clean. 88. These people had made differences. They grew up making differences in their lives. Not the characters, but the actors themselves. Edward James Olmos had made this character come to life, trying to show, besides the mannerisms, of what the character was up against. Racism in the school district of Los Angeles during that time. At the end of the film, or actually nearly the end of the film, these kids who worked themselves up from the basic math all the way through calculus, they all passed. But the district said no, they cheated. And Jaime had to go through a retesting with these youths, and he was dealing with the racial discrimination of a system that wasn't supposed to discriminate, but it did. their testers could not believe. The tester was a white guy and a black guy. And they had discrimination against Latina without even saying it, but they did it anyway with attitude, with their own damn words. And Jaime Escalante was confronting the testers on this. They have scenes of this on YouTube, and they're very powerful. And I'd watch the movie from time to time when I can get to it. Because to me, films like these were talking to us about ourselves back then and now, and it still happens. I said before that I made videos concerning about how had experienced it myself and how the feelings were still generated in me. I've met people on a bus that were so different, but it didn't matter to me because we're still the same underneath. There was a gentleman, 70s. He was having issues regarding a car being stuck in impound. And he was trying to tell me that his life, he came out here to AV about 74 when there was less people than we have right now, less issues, less problems. I didn't hear the portions about discrimination, but I knew there already had been anyway. Even some of the cops back then still had discriminations. They were still discriminatory. I heard stories. I heard stories back then about LAPD, but also about the LA Sheriff. It was just hearing about the good old days with someone else's childlike fantasy about how things were, how we looked at it through a child's point of view, not through the adult point of view that we have right now. And looking back at the past, it wasn't all that glorious. Different, yeah, because we had naivety. We didn't understand, we didn't care. We were just kids and childlike, but living through it and then remembering it. I don't want to go back in the past because we were also screwed up back then and we didn't care about anybody else back then either. We didn't do the love thing back in the 60s. No, we were still discriminatory bastards. And we showed it. We were blatant. We didn't need to put on a mask. We grabbed axe handles. We grabbed whatever we could and we went to war. Jacksonville back then proved that one back in the 60s. Then and now. Even a kid named Trayvon Martin. I remember. George Floyd was trying to protect his neighborhood by being a conscientious citizen, and because of Florida's laws over there, he thought he was going to be protected by it. An unarmed kid coming back from the store with stuff and he gets stopped by this asshole? It's no wonder Floyd's having issues these days because he opened up Pandora's box. And Trayvon had to pay for it. George Zimmerman. How many people have we lost because of racism and discrimination and thinking we were morally superior? When Daryl was saying that these kids were afraid because they were going to be losing their white superiority, these kids didn't care. Indoctrinated so much, marinated so much in the damn shit to protect a foolish ideology that who cares if the white race is disappearing at this point? Except if you're white. So now we got to be blaming everybody else for it. Now we got to start eliminating it. Is that how it goes? Is that how it works? We got to eliminate people left and right? Unfucking believable with you assholes.